Don she oyate weyanka poin, people who see this woman, Janelle Romero Conce. We're here today to celebrate American Indian Heritage Month all over the world. But I'm here in Los Angeles on the Tongva land, and in loving memory of our board member, Julia, she wrote the Los Angeles Land Acknowledgement. So I will proceed to read that. We, the Indigenous people, the traditional caretakers of this landscape, are the direct descendants of the first people who formed our lands, our worlds during creation time. We have always been here. They prepared and became the landscape and worlds for the coming of humans, with order, knowledge, and gifts embedded in the landscape. From our ancestors, we were imbued for responsibility and obligation to our original instructions, guided by protocol and etiquette, to be part of, take care of, and ensure the welfare of the extended family and community, defined in its most inclusive expression, the nature, and to pass on those teachings and responsibilities onto our children and grandchildren, and to all those that now live here. Aheo. So today is November 1st, and we are celebrating the American Indian Heritage Month, and we're going to talk about how American Indian Heritage Month came about and how we feel about it as Native Indigenous peoples. So American Indian Heritage Month in the city of LA, the purpose of American Indian Heritage Month is to celebrate the rich culture, traditions, and historical moments in Native Indigenous history. This time also serves as an opportunity to educate people outside of Native Indigenous culture and raise awareness about the challenges that Native people have fought historically and are facing in the present. Efforts to recognize Native Americans for their history began with Red Fox James. He was Blackfoot, rode over 4,000 miles on horseback from state to state, seeking approval for a day to honor Native Americans. That was on December 14th, 1915. He presented the endorsements of 24 state governments at the White House. Red James Fox, born about 1884 in Blood Indian Reserve number 148, Alberta, Canada, was a supporter of giving women the right to vote because in the early days before the white man came, the Indian women had equal voice in the council and even was elected chieftain. In 1916, New York governor declared an American Indian Day. Throughout the years following, many other states and local jurisdictions began to follow suit. The next action taken was in 1979, when Congress passed the joint resolution suggesting that Native American Awareness Week be made. 7 years later, in 1986, President Ronald Reagan declared November 23rd through November 30th as Native American Heritage Week. It wasn't until President George H.W. Bush approved the joint resolution to designate the whole month back in 1990. The proclamation came after several decades of Dr. Arthur C. Parker, the American Indian Association, Reverend Sherman Coolidge, and Red Fox James, activating and persisting the importance of this month. This landmark proclamation honoring America's tribal people was a major stepping stone in celebrating Native culture. Then in 2005, me, Janelle Romero, founder of Red Nation Celebration Institute, born of Mescalero Apache, Dene, Paiute, and Spanish Sephardic, a relative Pawnee, Pewaukee, Southern Ute, Lakota, and Haudenosaunee, I was so inspired by Red Fox that I worked hard for 5 years. And I went downtown every single day, 5 days a week, from 2000 to 2005, with the former DCALA manager, Marjorie Reese. Together, we created and launched the American Indian Heritage Month, established in the city of Los Angeles, officially recognized by the city of Los Angeles in 2005 with the proclamation. Until then, in the city of Los Angeles, there was only Black Heritage Month, Asian, and Latino. Red Nation Celebration Institute was officially recognized by the state of California in 2006 with a resolution given to RNCI in founding American Indian Heritage Month by the state of California Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger and Lieutenant Bustamante. In 2006, City of Los Angeles Mayor's reception announcing American Indian Heritage Month officially was produced by RNCI. Local Tongva spiritual leader Jimmy Castillo officially recognized me as the First Lady of American Indian Heritage Month for all Red Nations due to my vision in founding and establishing the American Indian Heritage Month in the city of Los Angeles in 2006. In addition, because of succeeding and unifying the interests of 19 tribes here in Los Angeles area. In 2007, when environmental consciousness came more clearly into the hearts and minds of Americans, RNCI was already breaking new ground by dedicating the city's second annual American Indian Heritage Month to honoring American Indians as our first environmentalists. So welcome everyone to this special edition and kicking off our Heritage Month for everyone, so we could all learn from each other and celebrate who we are. But I just want to say the most important thing why I worked so hard those 5 years was so that our children here and all over, but especially in the city of LA, could look and see around and recognize themselves, see themselves in media, see themselves in books, see themselves in the curriculum in schools. And that's why I chose to work really super hard to get that done. And it was really hard work, believe me, lobbying. It took a lot of years. But so now I'd like to welcome all of our guests. Dear friend, Steve Newcomb will be joining us, and he directed and co-directed and co-wrote a film, The Doctrine of Discovery, Unmasking the Dominant Code, and also the book, Promised Land, Decoding the Doctrine of Christian Discovery. And if I got that wrong, Steve, please correct me.
Well, it's The Doctrine of Discovery, Unmasking the Domination Code, and Pagans in the Promised Land, Decoding the Doctrine of Christian Discovery. And the movie was directed by Sheldon Wolfchild, as you probably know, who's from the Dakota Nation. But yeah, thank you.
Okay, well, I got that all wrong. So, but I'm happy you're here with us. And then I'd like to recognize and introduce you to someone I've known, I don't know, 500 years, really like over 30 years, as Theda Newbreast. She's from the Blackfeet Nation, and she's also a board member of RNCI, and she's the founding board member and master trainer facilitator for Native Wellness Institute and the board member of Solvent Bodies Institute. Welcome, Theda. Okay. And our other guest is Donald Rodriguez and Gabriano and has been dedicated to has been dedicated to securing the Indian Child Welfare Act as a social worker with American Indian Child Resource Center in Oakland, as a county protective service worker in Indian Specialty Union in San Diego. And his resume is from here to China, so he'll talk more about it. And then our other guest is Gabrielle Crow. Yes?
Yes.
Did I pronounce? Oh, and I'm so happy to have her on. She's the niece of Nick Rocha, and he suggested her to be on our panel because she's an environmentalist, and that is something that's so close to my heart, and I am so happy to welcome you.
Thank you.
So let's have a chat about this. Let's have a conversation, and let's talk about what it means to be Native Indigenous in this time, and also celebrating our American Heritage Month. What does that mean to you, Theta?
Well, okay, Nixiko, Nistuni Daniko Makoyo Sakoi. I come from Siksakea Tapiti, the Blackfoot Confederacy Territory, where I live in. It's 8 Fahrenheit, so a little bit different than Los Angeles. I went out hiking this morning. It warmed up to 15 Fahrenheit, and I just loved it. And you know, I thought this is indigenous. So for me, it's living on the land. It's talking the language. It's hunting the elk and eating it. It's fishing the fish and eating it. It's recognizing the solstice and the equinox and all of the ceremonies that with it. So Red Nations International Film Festival, I'm just really proud of you guys for really asking this question. I was born in 1956, and I was born with all 4 grandparents and all 64 first cousins, and I still live with them. I don't have a nuclear, I have like I guess it's indigenous to have whole bunch of family. And so I think that Red Nations, I think, is really good in the past, 26 years of gathering our stories. I think it's about our story, not fake stories, not made up stories, but it's about us putting our stories in film, about our ceremonies, our creation stories, our way of life, and how that can help in 2021. Because I think in the past 84 weeks, we've had a transformation with this pandemic. And part of this transformation, from Black Lives Matter to all people of color darker than a brown bag, a paper bag, we matter. We matter, and it's good to have an Indian Child Welfare Act person from Oakland. My mother, who's still alive, 83 years old, is still indigenous, contributed to the act in 1978. It's really good to see our other guests. It's really good to see our other guests, because I think indigenous is team. Indigenous is, and I'm wearing orange because I live right below Alberta. We're doing a lot of indigenous healing for the unmarked graves of children that are found there and also in the United States. My nails are orange. I have a heart for the black heart of the priests and the nuns who do atrocious things to children. And it's just a reminder to never forget. And that's part of what the films about indigenous is about, is telling the correct truth. And it's beautiful because it's November, and I think indigenous is every month, every day.
Yeah.
And so today I'll end with this. For a long time I was raised by a mother who told us that Thanksgiving was every day. So I have a turkey in the oven with wild rice stuffing. And I just make turkey all fall and all December, November, because I'm on call and I just don't have Thanksgiving dinner November 24th. I have it. So today, in celebration of Red Nation's International Film Festival, I said, I'm gonna make a turkey and I'm gonna make stuffing and I'm gonna make homemade cranberry. And I'm just gonna, send out my prayers. I love all of you on here. You're incredible people. You're just amazing. And that's indigenous. So Janelle, that's enough for me. Who else do we want to hear from?
Well, you pass the talking stick, Theta.
I'd like to hear Gabriella from
Hi.
Oakland,
Yeah.
Oaktown, from Oaktown. How are you? I grew up in Oakland.
So Miha, my name is Gabrielle Crow. I'm actually a Gabrielino Shoshone council member, but I have actually spent the last, I guess, almost 15, 16 years now working as an environmental educator. And so basically what I do is I try and make the connection between the past and what we're doing now, right now in the present, and how that leads to what we can do in the future. But from an indigenous perspective, thinking that we were the first stewards of the land and we need to get back to being able to take care of it. And anybody who lives on it needs to be respectful of it. And so it's a whole reteaching. A lot of things are happening because I know I teach a lot of younger students, but at the same time, it's the narrative needs to change a lot with adults, as a matter of fact. So there's a lot of shifting with that. We're trying to do some legislation to protect white sage here in California. So there's a lot of things that need to be done. And it's one of the main thing that I always realize is the fact that living in Los Angeles, that most people don't realize that there's still Native people in Los Angeles. They think that they went away as soon as the missions were here and everything. And we're still here. Just like I teach about the El Segundo blue butterfly and how that butterfly is still here even after the habitat has diminished. It's the same thing. The people that were first here are still here. There's just not as many left as there was before, but the people that are left are still trying to protect whatever land and whatever sacred places are still left here for us. So I'm honored to be here. I hope to make connections with all of you and talk with you more in the future, but I appreciate it. I feel like all the work that I'm doing is really coming into fruition. There's a lot of stuff. I'm helping protect Ballona wetlands, which is what my grandmother did years and years ago when she was the chief of our tribe. And so I feel like I'm taking over that legacy and I'm trying to leave something not only for my kids, but for other future generations. And I think that if we all kind of develop that mindset, not just indigenous people, but if it catches on for more people and they realize that our resources are not infinite, I think that it's going to change a lot of things for the world. And I think that things like our oil spill happening and other things, big things should not happen before we try and fix it. It should be, we fix things before these big major things happen. So we need to be respecting Mother Earth. We need to be respecting everything around us and just being appreciative of everything. And I know for me, my degree or my background is also in outdoor education. So my 3 kids know that during the pandemic, we were out hiking and doing that every day. I'm close enough to live really close by to the beach. So we're there all the time and just being respectful and just teaching other people about just the beauty that's around us in nature and just getting out there and being able to see that if we don't do things to protect it now, it's not going to look the same 50 years from now. So thank you. I appreciate the time.
Well, Gabrielle, I just want to share with you and everyone that, LA is, and everyone out there in the world, LA is the largest urban population of American Indian. And so having our Heritage Month, officially recognized with proclamations and resolutions here is a big deal and it's important. And so, yeah. And then the wetlands, this morning we put out a call on social media to what we do water ceremonies. We've been doing that for 26 years here in LA. And we used to be in person and we used to be in the LA River before it was beautified. And then we were in Malibu and then we've been in Topanga with the water ceremony. And then, and this was like, had up to 150 people attend over the years, right, at one giving, one ceremony. And then we one time we're at the Playa del Rey, the wetlands there. And I'll share about that another time with you, but that was an incredible, incredible ceremony that day. And if we have enough time today, I'll share with everyone a little bit later about it. But
can I just add one more thing too?
yeah, oh, absolutely.
So as far as what I think Native American Heritage, American Indian and Native American Heritage Month, what it means to me is the fact that we are still here, and I want it to be so that people know that we're still here and recognize that fact, because I could tell you how many times I've taught students and I've gotten thank you notes from them that tell me that I'm so young and still so beautiful, because they thought, you know, that they associate Native American, like, and I know, because I'm also, my mom's also Mexican, so I'm mixed too. And that's another thing to think about, that if you're indigenous no matter if you have a little bit or a lot. And I think that for people, because, you know, we don't live on reservations and other things, I think it's just real easy for people to kind of push or put a blanket over it and be like, okay, well, they're not here anymore. And so part of that is, like, even talking about my work with Ballona Wetlands, I've gone to field trips and other things there, but at the same time, there's a lot of work that needs to be done at the state level to gain access to our ancestral lands, versus being in places that's the only wetlands that's left in Los Angeles, and yet we don't have access to it on a regular basis. So that's what I'm working on, this sort of stuff with higher ups in state agencies. But that's the whole thing, that we are still here and we are still doing work to be able to just be able to have ceremony in places and be able to enjoy things that were not once bulldozed and parking lots and other things like that. But it's just, so I think that Native American Heritage Month is important, because I think that it's just a way for us to be seen, but it shouldn't just be for 1 month. It should just be all the time. But I know that it's, you know, it's not like I say, at least we have a month. It's not that. It's just, I think it's a starting off point, a tipping point to more recognition and people seeing us for the work that we're doing as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I hope that everybody this morning, and you don't have to do it at sunrise, you could do it all day long, every day. Hold a glass of water for world peace. And that water is very sacred, that Maniwanka. That's Lakota language. Okay. So Steve Newcomb.
How are you? Delawensa Steve Newcomb, Nulalenda Melipauk. That's just a brief greeting in our Lenape language. I'm Shawnee in Lenape, and I'm the co-founder and director of the Indigenous Law Institute. And I want to thank you, Janelle, for having me be part of this circle here. And also congratulations on another year of your Red Nations International Film Festival. It's terrific. And I admire all the work that you do, and it's tireless in all your efforts. So I really appreciate that. And I guess I wanted to, well, first of all, let me acknowledge the Tongva, Tataviam, Ashaman, and Chumash nations, and all the other original nations of what is now called California, and to set a little bit of a context, which is the original free and independent existence of our nations and peoples, extending back to the beginning of time through our oral histories and traditions, and contrasting that with the systems of domination that were brought over here by ship across the ocean and imposed on everyone and everything. And that system of domination, or those systems, however you want to look at that, are still ongoing. And that's a big part of the challenge, that we have this genocidal nature of the history that is contrasting with all of those amazing accomplishments that our nations and peoples and our ancestors were able to create and evolve over countless generations. It's quite extraordinary when you look at the Kumeyaay Nation territory just south of where I am now, down in what's now commonly called San Diego, that there was a mastodon bone found a couple decades ago, and they were not wanting to deal with that. They, meaning the archaeologists, because it was so old and it showed signs of humans having worked on it. When they finally did the dating, they found that it was 120,000 years old, and it had a percussion point on there that had been put there by humans when it was fresh, when the animal was just freshly killed. So this demonstrates that our nations and peoples have been here an extraordinarily long time, but if you think about it in Western European time frame terms, but from our own oral histories and traditions, we originate here. And so what does that mean? Our languages evolved over countless generations. What kinds of knowledge and wisdom are embedded in those, evolved and designed into those languages? What can the world learn from that? For example, I learned recently that the sound la in Lakota or Pilamia or Wopila, that sound la means a deep affection so it's a deep affection for life. It's actually woven into the strands of meaning within the language. If I say some of our Lenape words, such as a holtawakan, a word for love, or leha leheokan, or kikayuya mananingake, which is our word for our ancestors, our beloved ones that are departed now and have taken their journey to the spirit world, those sounds, those words, according to Western European time frame terms, are something like 13,000 years old at least. So there's so much that's amazing and profound that we need to come to terms with in the retrospective that we need to do. And also with regard to the Vatican papal bulls of the 15th century and the Johnson versus McIntosh ruling and the whole anti-Indian law system, as my friend Peter Dorico likes to say, that system needs to be examined in more detail, and the underpinnings of the claim of a right of domination that starts as the premise of that system. And by the way, next year, 2023, will be the bicentennial, the 200-year mark since the Johnson versus McIntosh ruling was first issued by Chief Justice John Marshall and a unanimous Supreme Court. So we have a really great opportunity to have an amazing run up to that date and really truly intensify our educational efforts, because the domination system that I'm talking about has devastating consequences for the entire planet. And I said at the Parliament of World Religions in 2015, the COP26 is going on right now, right, in Scotland. And back then I said that trying to deal with climate change without dealing with paradigm change and the need for paradigm change would be a grave mistake. So we have to really, truly get down to the foundation of all the issues that we're dealing with. And lastly, I want to say with regard to the Indian Child Welfare Act and the way in which the society at large, not just through the boarding schools where my grandfather and my great-grandfather ended up at Haskell, but also through the adoption and foster care program process, that this is yet another way in which our nations and peoples are attacked. And there's a great effort now by powerful forces to undermine and destroy ICWA, the Indian Child Welfare Act. And so that's another issue that has to be dealt with. So there's so much to cover, but I'll leave it right there. And thank you very much again for having me. One issue.
Thank you, Steve. And now let's welcome Donald to this table and this conversation and the work that you do. It's profound also. And yeah.
AIHM, Natwaine Donald Rodriguez, Nahumfutum Nahinkame, Chief Yana, Vera Rocha, Francis Carrillo, Elvira Mendibles, Cristobal Romero. I also sit here with my cousin Gabrielle. We're on the Gabelino Shoshone Council together. Shout out to the Gabelino Tongva, shout out to the Quiche Nation, shout out to the Shoshonga Tongva Nation, and all the other non-federally recognized tribes that inhabit what is presently called Los Angeles County. My work is in regards to what Mr. Newcomb was talking about in the Indian Child Welfare Act. And of those tribes that I just mentioned, our greatest, our most precious resource, our children, are being removed at a far greater disproportionate rate because we are not protected under the Indian Child Welfare Act of 1978, which is for the federally recognized tribes. Yes, there's a spirit of the law that maybe if the judge wants to, they will allow tribes to participate in the tribal hearing, but this is not happening. And so what my work is to make sure that counties and the state and the tribe are in communication when it comes to a tribal child. Now, definitions have been set forth by the federal government, which decides who can be considered a tribal child. And when talking about ICWA, we also have to understand what tribal sovereignty is. And to understand tribal sovereignty, you have to understand what history is. And to understand all that, you have to really be open to confronting grave atrocities, genocide. So when I hear of Native American Heritage Month, for me, it's a coming together. And I have a vision that all of the Gabrielino, the Tongva, the Kizh, the Shoshone, we can gather together and unite over the protection of our children. And if that's under one banner to hopefully attain federal recognition, to be under the protections of the Indian Child Welfare Act, wonderful. If that can't happen, what can we do as individual tribes to make sure that our children are protected? So, like we said earlier, I hit the ground running when I was working up in Oakland with Mary Trimble Norris and the CRC, the Children Resource Center up there. Shout out Mary. But I had to know more. So that was from a nonprofit tribal side. But why do our families get into the system? Like, all right, well, I better get back to school and get my MSW in social work so I can figure this out. So what can I do? So I got a job down in San Diego County in their Indian Specialty Unit, where there's the most federally recognized tribes in the contiguous United States, where I still am. I still locate here down on Kumeyaay land, where I was working within child welfare services as a protective services worker for the tribes that are down here, but under the county. And that was some difficult work, and I learned a lot. And I learned how bias exists. I learned how to just know data, that our data that we keep to track our children is flawed. So what can I do about this? All right, let's work for the state then. So now I'm currently employed with the Office of Tribal Affairs under the California Department of Social Services. I've been doing that for about 1.5 years as a Southern ICWA field liaison. So basically it's from Santa Barbara on down to Imperial County, making sure that the state, county are communicating with their tribes and to have them hopefully come to the table just like this. So thank you very much, Janelle, for allowing this to happen. To discuss why these systems exist and what are we going to do about it, because it's not right. These systems are broken. From my experience with working within these two systems, I'm realizing there's a lot of things that need to change. And so in this spirit of Native American Heritage Month, a coming together and a time for it. There's a great momentum where tribes are saying, enough's enough. This law's been around since '78. Stop taking our kids. It's done. It's a great honor that I'm here with Ms. Newbreast and Mr. Newcomb, two of my heroes. You don't know it yet, but you're definitely my heroes.
Oh.
So I'm greatly, greatly humbled and honored to be a part of this conversation. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Wow. That's intense work. Prayers and hugs to you. Mama hug. When I was lobbying to try to get, I'm using that word loosely, lobbying. I don't even know why I'm using that word. But when I was downtown LA trying to get this Heritage Month initiated and found it, it was really important that we keep it with our our nations, with RNCI, right? Because RNCI is representing all of us, on many platforms. So it's real important that the wording and the integrity happened. And it took a minute. It took, 5 years, right? But when I was going up and down the coast, going to all of our different nations here in the state of California, it was really interesting what I discovered. And Donald, I love how you express the unity, because that's still my biggest prayer. That is one of the foundations of working with the work that I do, is the unifying and coming together for our children, right? Because our children are watching. And so even the ones in the spirit world. So, I noticed that, different nations were saying, well, we're not from Los Angeles, so, we're not going to support that. And that was back then, right? And it's gotten better. It's gotten better with our nations coming together and unifying and saying, well, we may not agree with that point of view, but the bigger picture of it, yeah, we do. Let's move forward and let's support each other. And I think that's the bigger mission here and the bigger goal. And I love that you shared that, because as a mother, as a grandma of 3, and the founder of RNCI, which is kind of like the mom. So it's really important to come together, to agree to disagree, but come together for the bigger picture of our children, enrolled and non-enrolled. So, yeah. So I'm going to have another question for you guys as we wrap this up. Let me think for a second. What are you doing in celebration for this month of November with your tribal nation and your family?
No, I could start off. We've been unable to cross the border in Canada since February 2020. And November 8th, we can start crossing the border as long as we have of our 2 shots and hopefully a booster. And so my relatives up there are with the Truth and Reconciliation Commission across from Ontario over to British Columbia. They're doing a lot of wellness, and it's around children, just like what the focus is here. And so we're just excited that we'll be able to go and visit with our relatives, and they can also come down here and visit. My relative Roger Prairie Chicken is an Ixcanax, an old horn. It's a horn society, because we're in societies from the time we're born. And I'm excited for him to come down, because one of the things is we're going to have him meet with Leon Rattler, who is head of our Ganaxtem at our Brave Dog Society, and have a meal. And they're just going to discuss earth paints. Leon, the transfer rights of 17 earth paints, and Roger has just so much knowledge around our ways and our values. And so this month, I'm a catalyst. I'm more the facilitator of bringing them together. I think that during this month, we have 4 seasons of weather. It's not just sunny all the time. So this month, and it's pretty cool, is when you turn 65 here, you get a free elk tag. And I'm 65, and so my relative is going to hunt my mom's elk tag, our elk tag, and then we give his family half the meat. But it's kind of, it's so indigenous because like we're elders and the average life expectancy 54, eh? So when you can live over that, everybody brings you meat. So it's kind of like this month, like we're gonna give meat, they're gonna give us meat. And so it's like this kind of like I don't know, interdependence of we give, you give, and there's something beautiful about it. It's just like everybody's like giving food and meat to each other. I also think we're in transformation. We're in transformation, and I think the bigger world, the bigger global world, as we get vaccinated, we'll reach herd immunity. I'm actually looking at herd immunity here. We're 98% vaccinated, and from 5 years old and up, vaccinated. And to help children, and Donald and Gabrielle, probably one of our efforts, our tribal leaders, to help families when you're 5 years old to 12 and you got first and second shot. On your second shot, that child was given $500. So it's like really cool because like if you got 7 kids, I mean, it's like, it's like you got 7 kids. The whole focus was giving, money to families. And you just see all the happiness. Like yesterday, because we do have herd immunity on the reservation, we were able to allow children to go and trick or treat. And some didn't. We're still being safe, but it was just, there was so much happiness just in the community. I mean, I always put on my Bigfoot outfit and go run around in the woods, make videos. So I think that, I don't know, like the transformation, I think.
Oh. Well, Theta got stuck there in the inner tubular of this internet.
Cultural identity.
There we go.
You were frozen.
Sorry about that. Because we don't. It's November. This November, I'm just gonna try to be with my relatives and just have ordinary, simple time of visiting, eating. I'll say that much. So, what about others? What are you gonna do?
Gabrielle?
Yeah, I think that honestly, right now is always the best time of year for like to get my kids outside in nature and just be outside and hiking and I actually like running. I'm a trail runner, so I like to run outside. So just being outside, and it's at the point in the year where it's actually cool enough to be able to do like those long distance runs. Usually in January or so, I always do like a half marathon. So it's like usually the time that I start training to do that. But I just think that I'm also going to be doing on the other side of the spectrum, I'm going to be doing some presentations for some third graders, just talking about, because there's a real need right now and teachers and districts are becoming more culturally aware and wanting to be sensitive. But at the same time, I don't think that the teachers are equipped with the right information because they're obviously going off of what's in history books or other things like that. That's not an accurate depiction of what really happened here. So I've been contacted by a lot of different schools to actually do presentations and talk about really what happened here, because we have a tendency, I guess, in the educational system to kind of gloss over the things that are not so pretty and that are not so nice. And so there needs to be a way to be able to present this information and be like, yeah, that was horrible, but we're not going to do those sort of things anymore. And we're aware of it now. But back then, this is what happened. And this is why we have to be appreciative of the people that are still here and still teaching us about the land now. So I think just getting getting back to that, like just education is my main thing, but I think that just getting out in nature, spending time with family. I know for us, even Donald could say too, that all of our tribal council meetings that we've had have all been on Zoom. So it's nice to get to the point where we can like start to actually have family gatherings and see people in person again. And it's funny because sometimes you meet people over Zoom, and when you finally meet them in person, you're like, oh, hey, they're good friends. And you're already good with them. Like you get through the awkward part when you talk on Zoom, and then you're like good friends after that, So just getting outside in nature more and just being with family, and my youngest is going to be turning 5 in a couple of weeks. So she's real excited about that. So, celebrations and that sort of thing. I guess, Donald, if you want to go next.
Yeah.
I'll pass it to Mr. Newcomb, sir. You first, please.
Well, I don't know. I mean, every day is Indian Day as far as I'm concerned. But well, I'm assisting my dad now, who's 84 years old, and he's my non-native dad and non-native side of the family. So it's been interesting because, we never were close. And in fact, we were really, we just, we had, it's been a healing time because to know each other in a way that we never did before. So I'm very, very grateful for that, actually. And yeah, I mean, my daughter Shauna Blue Star Newcomb and I are doing presentations together. She's just extraordinary, and in my view, in terms of how beautifully she presents the information about the doctrine, and she has that poise and just some kind of a really wonderful healing ability when she presents, not like her curmudgeon dad, And but yeah, and then my wife Paige, and we've been together 38 years now, so we're just all trying to figure out how to negotiate through life and deal with everything, but at the same time always maintaining that effort that we've been involved in. I really started on this when I was about 16, when I first got to spend time with medicine people and traditional folks from reservations. And I grew up in the city, I was an urban native person. And so all those abilities, all those opportunities rather, to spend time with traditional folks and medicine people and others, elders and so forth, that I just I'm so thankful every single day that I got to spend time with such amazing people, such as my friend and mentor Virgil Killstraight, who passed to the spirit world back in 2019. And I wouldn't be the person I am today without all those influences and those amazing people that maintain their ceremonies and their traditions and their language. So I'm deeply grateful for that. And yeah, anyway, so we'll carry on.
Yeah, November is definitely a special time, we'll say. It's all changing, the weather's changing, but at the same time, it's like what Gabrielle was saying, it's also often a time for re-education that needs to happen. Especially with Thanksgiving coming up, and we just had Halloween, and then there's, especially with our kids and stuff, we have to make sure, like, okay, you don't have to be dressing up like an Indian and a pilgrim during your school play, which is still happening, by the way. What just happened 2 years ago with my daughter, which I had to have a big old discussion with the school board. But hey, re-education. Some people just don't know. And that's exactly what my daughter said. I was so upset, and she's like, well, Dad, maybe they just don't know. And I'm like, yeah, the genius of children. But I do hope to spend more time with my family and my extended family. We've been on this Zoom world in our little Brady Bunch boxes for so long that it'd be great to just embrace and just get connected. So I hope we all can do that.
Well, this, I'm going to show you this. I'm going to get up. The t-shirts have come in and we're so excited. You see how? See how?
Oh,
Very nice.
Yeah.
love 'em.
So I'm real excited about them. We have an extraordinary artist, a designer that's been with us during the pandemic and moving forward. She's awesome. Destiny, I want to recognize her today. I love working with her. She's a young person and very extraordinary and very talented. Well, I want to thank all of you. I love you all so, so very much. Even my new friends here, I feel like I've known you as long as I've known Steve and Theta, and I'm looking forward to working with you. I have some great ideas. I will call you this week in regards to this month. Keep in mind November 30th for both of you, Donald and Gabrielle, because there's something real exciting coming up with that. That we could do something in person. But for everyone out there, you know, what I'm going to be doing for the month of November is our 26th Red Nation International Film Festival. It kicks off today. So we have, I know, we have 30 days of screenings. We have 2 weeks of in-person. We're back in person. It's so exciting because we haven't been for over like 2 years. And so since November of 2019. So we're so excited and all the filmmakers are excited. We have 65 films, 19 documentaries, 38 shorts, 27 directed by women. It's an extraordinary year for our Native Indigenous filmmakers. And, you know, we have our award ceremony coming up on November 14th. So here in the in RNCI office, we've been crazy busy with 2 film crews, scripts, talking with and sharing with all these 65 filmmakers and their actors and their producers. A lot of talent here. Every day is just, I love this work. I love this work. I love amplifying our stories to the world. That's a passion that I've had since I was 3 years old. And I'm not going to say how old I am. I'll say it, I'm 64. Okay, I said it. But I have the passion and the enthusiasm still lives within me for this work. And I think I'll always be this way. You know, I'll always be amplifying our Native Indigenous talent to the world. One, because I have grandbabies and more to come. So that's a priority. And second, to all the other kids, all the other universes of children and especially cementing our storytellers and our voice and our narrative in the entertainment industry, because our stories matter. We were here first, and we need, and we are, and we will continue to be amplifying those stories, because there's thousands and millions of stories still to be told. So it's not like we have lack of content. We have a lot of content. So let's do this. So that's what I'll be doing the whole month. I'll be working with all the filmmakers and the audiences and the press and all of that. And hopefully have a turkey dinner at some point. Maybe I'll do what Theta's doing, put a turkey in and I could have it for the whole month, right? Then I, just keep it in the fridge. Maybe that's what I'll do. But I want to thank all of you out there who has tuned in today to experience the Native narrative and our stories and our personal shares about why American Indian Heritage Month is important to us and to the world. And you could go to rednationff.com to visit all the films and see all the events we have. I don't even know how many. I think there's like 35 events. That's on top of all the 65 screenings, right? And on top of the award ceremony. So yeah, we're doing it. We're happening over here at RNCI. And I want to thank you all again, Steve and Theta and Donald and Gabrielle. You all are so beautiful and so generous with your energy and your time today. And I love you all. Thank you.